If you're like most people with a fiber laser and you're trying to engrave photos onto metal, you're probably just dropping the image into LightBurn or XCS, picking some random power settings, and maybe you're using Jarvis to do some dithering, but you're ending up with images that look like this. Well, stop doing that because there's a much better way. You don't need fancy tools or advanced skills. You just need a fiber laser and the right process. And in this video, I'll show you exactly how I prep images, dial in those settings to get pro quality photo engravings like this on stainless steel and even brass. So let's fix this. Now I'm just going to dive right in here and say, in order to achieve these professional grade metal engravings, there's a couple of things you need to understand. The first one is you need to understand your laser. Now, I've been using this Xtool F2 Ultra for a while, and I think I understand it pretty well, so I'm going to use that in this video, but you can use any fiber laser you have at your disposal. I'm going to use XCS, but if you want to use LightBurn, if your laser requires it, you can certainly use that. EasyCAD too, if that's what you're using. Any of these will work. And the next thing you need to understand here is the material. Now, if you look at a piece of brand new stainless steel or brass, you're going to see that it's quite shiny. And in the case of a photo, quite often we want to engrave white as well as black. We want the full spectrum of shades. Now, normally a piece of stainless steel isn't white. It's like a mirror. So you need to do a special technique to kind of give you a white background first, and then you engrave your image on top of that. Same with brass. And that's because sometimes when they manufacture these metals, they'll put like a clear coat on them to protect them or keep them from oxidizing in the case of brass. So you have to punch through that layer first, and that means we need to do some special prep for our image. So image prep for this is pretty straightforward. I loaded my image and I've already removed the background. In Kittle, which is what I'm using, you can just click the remove background button and it uses some AI thing to get rid of it. But you can use any image editing software you have at your disposal, and you can do exactly the same thing here. What we're doing here as far as setup is pretty basic. So I've got the image without the background, and now I'm just going to go and bring up the image settings for this, and I'm going to make this a black and white image. So I'm just going to go to the saturation and turn that down to 0. And that looks pretty good, but you can see the white splotches there on the cheeks. So I'm going to dim this image down. I'm going to bring the brightness down quite a bit, and you can go too extreme, but let's not do that. But you can go down quite dark, actually, and then you can still see that the black to white ratio there is pretty sharp still. So I'm going to drop the contrast a little bit as well, just to kind of smooth out some of the color transition. And then the next thing is we want to do that white kind of capability. So I'm going to clone the image and I'm going to create a mask, and that's going to be our background. Now, Kittle doesn't have mask creation, so I'm going to fake it here. I'm just going to clone that image a few times by turning the contrast and the brightness down to 0. And when I put a few layers of that down, you'll see that it's black. I'm then just going to export it, and I'll bring it up here in just a photo viewer, and you'll see I have the image itself and the background mask, and that's really all I need to do really nice engraving. Now, because I'm using the Xtool F2 Ultra laser, I'm going to use XCS as the control software. So what I did was I created a new project and dropped those two images in and stacked them one on top of each other, but I'll separate them here just so you can see them. So on the right-hand side, I have the mask, and on the left, I have the image. But over on the left, you'll see that the layers are shown there, and the mask will be done first. And I will point out that you can rename these things, and I would recommend that. Now, as far as settings go, I'm going to use the IR laser, obviously. I'm going to use a dot duration of 40 microseconds, and the power is going to be 1 to 30%, so 30% is going to be black. Now, as far as resolution, I'm going to be fairly high resolution here, but you can do less. I'm going to use 1,000 dots per inch. Now, instead of a dithered pattern, I'm going to use grayscale, and this is important if you want high quality. And pulse duration is going to be 200 nanoseconds, and the frequency is going to be 48 kilohertz. Now, on the image side, pretty much the same. The dot duration is slightly longer at 45 microseconds, and the power slightly higher at 1 to 50%, and that's the only difference. Now, I laid down a piece of stainless steel here, and I'm going to do the engrave. This is sped up quite a bit. You'll see it does the background first, and then it does the image. And what you get as a result of that is whites in the image actually look fairly white. My background here was probably a little darker than it needed to be, but you can see the results there look pretty amazing compared to what you might be used to if you were using some kind of a dithering pattern without doing a mask on the background. Now, stainless steel isn't the only place you can do this. I've been working with a bit of brass lately, so I want to also be able to do this on brass, and the good news is you can. So I'll show you the same pattern here. I've got both images. Now on the mask side, the duration is the same. The power is a little higher. That's the only difference. It goes to up to 40%. Same on the image side. Instead of 50, it's 60%. So really simple to convert from one to the other. Just basically add 10% if you're doing brass. So I threw this over to the F2 Ultra, and I'm showing you here in real time doing first the mask in the background. Now, keep in mind, this is 1,000 lines per inch in real time, so it's going to be relatively slow. This took about 25 minutes to engrave, and then it does the image on top of it, and you can see it taking shape there and how amazing it looks when it's finished. And clearly, this is the way you want to do engraving on any kind of metal. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have any aluminum plate here, or I would have also done one of these on aluminum just so you could get a feel for it, but it should also work there. Okay, let's recap here. Now, going back to the original, if you just take an image and drop it onto your laser with a dithered pattern, you're always going to get unsatisfactory results. It's always going to be grainy, for example, but you'll also struggle with intensity from light areas to dark areas of your image. But if you use a little more time to prepare the image right, where you drop the brightness a bit and play with the contrast a little bit, and then use grayscale for your engraving, you're going to get good results. Now, you might have to play with it a bit, but if you use this consistent kind of mechanism, you're going to generally get results that'll always be close to what you're looking for. So go give this a try. Now, I will give you a bit of a disclaimer or forewarning here. Depending on the actual physical material that you're using, your results for the settings might change slightly. So you may have to bump the power in those XCS settings I showed you, either up or down, but use very small movements. A couple of percent is generally enough to change things pretty drastically. So keep all of that in mind as you're playing, but definitely if you have questions or comments, leave them down below and I'll answer all of them. And be sure, if you got something out of this video, to click that like button. And at this point, I'll wind down and I'll say get out there, make your world, and I'll see you next time.